Cully with natural disasters. Natural disasters, Craig Cully.
Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and guests, a natural disaster is the Earth's way of releasing concentrated energy. No matter where you live, you are vulnerable to a disaster with little or no warning. It's true that some parts of the globe are more prone to natural disasters than others. However, they can strike at any time, including here in Australia. Let's consider Tropical Cyclone Tracy in the Northern Territory, which descended on Christmas Eve, 1974. Weather reports that morning indicated that the cyclone would avoid Darwin. However, a strong 90-degree turn put it on a collision course with Darwin, and winds of 220 kilometres per hour killed 71 people. 70% of the buildings were flattened, and 20,000 people left homeless. It was the worst natural disaster to hit any Australian city in Australian history. Have you ever been in a natural disaster? My one and only experience was on August the 29th, 2005, when Hurricane Katrina slammed into the Gulf Coast of the United States of America. Katrina brought 282-kilometre-hour winds with huge 10-metre waves. It flooded 80% of New Orleans and killed over 1,400 people. My personal experience was some 900 kilometres away up in the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina. The storm's pathway brought with it strong winds and flooding. Electricity was lost, and I recall seeing people riding a canoe down the golf course opposite where I lived. The tennis club where I worked, the courts were flooded and covered with mud. People were fearful. There was fear in the community at that time, so leadership was very important. You may have heard about some recent mudslides that have occurred. Another type of natural disaster is landslides. Do you recall the Thredbo ski village landslide on the 30th of July 1997? It killed 18 people. 1,000 tons of debris came down the slopes and destroyed two ski lodges. There was one lucky survivor of this ordeal. He was found 2.5 metres below the earth, trapped in a void between 3 concrete slabs, and he survived 3 nights of below freezing temperatures. Ultimately, human error was to blame for this landslide, as a water main had been left on, and it had resulted in the earth being lubricated enough to collapse and then destroy everything in its path. $40 million worth of compensation was paid out to the victims of that event. Now, the world's largest landslide actually occurred at Mount St. Helens, USA in 1980. An earthquake triggered the landslide. 7.1 kilometres cubed of material came gushing down the side of the volcano's flank, and in fact flattened about 200 houses, and it actually triggered a major volcanic eruption, which happened on the 18th of May 1980, killing 51 people. Another form of disaster, natural disaster, is an earthquake, which results from sudden ruptures of the Earth's crust. The largest earthquake on record occurred at Valdivia, Chile, on the 22nd of May 1960. It measured 9.5 on the Richter scale, and the coast of Chile is actually very vulnerable to earthquakes, as it sits in an active fault zone that makes it vulnerable. At Valdivia, 5,700 people lost their lives. The earthquake triggered a tsunami with 24-metre high waves that went in far and caused damage as far away as Hawaii and Japan. Do you recall Christchurch? There was an aftershock there on the 22nd of February 2011, measured 6.2 on the Richter scale. It actually destroyed parts of this iconic Christchurch cathedral, but the human toll was even greater. There's a real human story in all of these disasters. Possibly the most frightening natural disaster on recent record was the tsunami that struck in the Indian Ocean on the 26th of December 2004. The magnitude 9.1 earthquake triggered a tsunami which brought 9-metre high waves, killed approximately 300,000 people in 12 countries. The rupture of the sea floor lifted and caused this natural event. The human toll was obviously enormous, and fortunately there was a massive major international aid effort which helped the victims and prevented things like disease occurring, precocious diseases. Okay. To drought and fire. Drought is by far the most severe of the, as it affects agriculture, which affects economies and affects people's ability to feed and clothe themselves. In 1982-83, Australia suffered a prolonged drought. Now that triggered the Ash Wednesday bushfires, which occurred, and 75 people lost their lives. More recently, who can forget Black Saturday bushfires here in Victoria? On 7th February 2009, 173 people passed away. The impacts of these natural disasters are massive, and they affect families and have future effects. One disease I just want to cover tonight, or one additional, is the infectious diseases as another natural disaster. The Spanish flu pandemic, 1918-19, the H1N1 virus, was the world's most deadliest. It killed 40 million people. That's just the magnitude beyond belief. So in conclusion, natural disasters are numerous. Planet Earth, when it decides to release its concentrated energy, can do so with a humongous, overwhelming force. The impact on human civilization is immense. Although public policy initiatives and technological intervention may reduce gas emissions or help detect natural disasters ahead of time, the reality is natural disasters are an act of God, and it's an inherent part of the remarkable world we live in. Thank you.